All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining our cannabis banking webinar hosted by GreenSpace Pro. As you all know, currently there are no major banking systems that will service the cannabis industry, but banking is necessary for theft, cost, efficiency, future planning, and to accept non-cash payments. So to help solve that problem, we have gathered professionals in the industry here to provide you with their insight on how to find a banking program in this underserved industry. So I'd like to introduce our speakers. We have Tim Morland with Abaca, who provides cannabis businesses with compliant financial services, in which Tim is specialized in, in which he is specialized in, and as well as licensing, applications, compliance, and governmental affairs. Tim is our banking expert, and he will be telling us all about what is required to obtain a bank account in the cannabis industry and what the process looks like. And we have Ed, who is a recognized industry expert and pioneer for the cannabis compliance. And he will be speaking on compliant expectations as he is the Chief Compliance Officer for GreenSpace Pro. And then lastly, we have Nick, who is the Customer Success Director at GreenSpace Pro and an expert on the project management tool built for cannabis operators. He will be showing us the best organizational practices to stay compliant. So let's go ahead and get started with Tim. Go ahead.
Great. Well, pleasure to be here. I would like to thank the GreenSpace team for having me. Honored to be on this panel with Ed and Nick. And so as mentioned, I am Tim Morland, the California California lead for Abaca, which is a cannabis fintech company based out of Little Rock, Arkansas. We serve the industry with compliant bank accounts across the country. We work with a number of financial institutions around the country and provide compliant cannabis bank accounts along with leasing, lending, financing, HR opportunities, etc. And I'm also the owner of Morland Consulting, which is a boutique consulting, compliancy, and consulting firm here in the state of California. All right, well, enough about me. What we're here for is to learn how to get a bank account and some of the things that we have to go through. First things first, as far as, and I know GreenSpace is going to provide a link or some type of an application checklist for the viewers here. So, first things first, in being criteria to applying for a cannabis bank account. If you're a plant touching company, meaning you work with the plant and you're an operator, a manufacturer, cultivator, distributor, retail, etc., you of course you have to have a state license. That's one of the first things that comes into play. In California, a state license entails multiple licenses at the local level or approval at the local level and the actual state license. So that's the first thing that you'll need to start out. And there's a variety of other paperwork as well. I kind of hate mentioning this, but applying for a bank account is kind of like, in a sense, applying for a state license. The great thing is you already have those documents if you're a plant touching company. So items like if you're organized as an LLC, you'll need operating agreements, you'll need meeting minutes, you'll need basic business information that any cannabis company would need to get a license. Articles of incorporation from the Secretary of State, etc. A lot of times we'll ask for bank statements. If you currently have a relationship with a financial institution, we'll ask for bank statements. We'll ask for things such as your taxes and a variety of other financial documents. The process is, really simple for an application here at Abaca. Once you pay there's a small fee to pay, so we can do the due diligence work on the background and pay our employees to do that. Once you pay that and sign the agreement, which is usually sent via DocuSign, we get you started. All of the All the application material is online. It's simply clicking a button and uploading documents. And once you upload all of the necessary documents that are on that application, that'll point you on the system. You'll be assigned right after that, you'll be assigned what's called a customer success rep at Abaca, and they will also help you assist in that application process. Because a lot of times you do upload these documents and then they'll be reviewed. We call this the KYC process, know your customer process. Once they review those documents, they'll come back to you probably with a few questions and ask maybe for some other supporting documentation. But that person is designated strictly for you to contact if there are any questions. And also myself, especially in the California market, I'm more than willing to jump in and answer any questions you have as well in that application process. So, always available to answer any of those questions. So once we get all the application material turned in, we need to go out and physically do what's called a site visit. This is, I don't really like the name site visit. I treat them honestly as a tour, because honestly, if we've gone through this application process and we've asked for all these documents, and by the time we get to the site visit process, we pretty much know you're going to be in a good position to get that bank account. But the federal regulators have asked us to do this so we can bank the industry. So what usually happens is I come out and I call it a tour. I do a tour of your facility, and folks just walk me around, show me where everything's going to be if they're not in operation yet, or just walk me out, give me the lay of the land. I check for some compliancy issues and just make sure those boxes are checked off. And once that site visit done, usually we have your bank account open pretty quickly. Okay, got into yes. Thanks for that second slide. So obviously, I mentioned that we'll do a full-scale review of your application. We'll have BSA officers, bank secrecy officers, looking at that application. These are essentially compliance folks at the bank. Sorry, that's like a scary word, Bank Secrecy Act, but that's what they do. That's how we're able to bank these cannabis clients. One of the things too you got to watch out that's going to be done, not that you got to watch out for, but we will do a negative news search. So they'll look in databases like LexisNexis to just see if there's any negative news that's out there about the company. We also do this for the vendors, which you'll list the application process. You'll provide us a list of the top vendors. And honestly, we have to do that because to go through the extra due diligence and check the industry. But this is usually not a problem. Usually 9 times out of 10, things don't come up usually in these negative news searches. But it's just a process we have to follow. All right. Great onboarding process. So once you've got this complete application, it's been approved, and we're moving on, we got to get you onboarded with a bank account. So you'll get a variety of documents from the financial institution that we work with in California, and that is Pacific Valley Bank. And they will send you a list of documents to onboard that account. That can be anywhere from, it's just some basic documents. You have to give some sensitive information, so it's all done through secure portals, etc. You're going to need to fund the account. Usually we ask for $10,000 to fund an account, but to be completely honest with you, we don't hold you to that. I've opened accounts up with a lot less money, like somewhere in $2,000 range, honestly, but that's what we kind of like to see, is that $10,000 funding level. So that's definitely part of that. There's a online banking application that's done after that. That's something, actually, you know what? That's actually portal, so that'll be set up because obviously customers want to get access to their online banking. So that's done pretty quickly. And then there's a process where we go and we set up ACH limits with the customer, depending on credit scores, depending on the size of the company and the revenue. And then the last step for those companies who are dealing with cash, there's still quite a few companies in the space dealing with cash, but you are seeing a movement away from cash. A lot of companies just don't want to deal with it. You continue. So what we do is we set up a process with the armored car service that we use, OSS, here in the state of California. There's an application process, and then they come out and they review the site real quickly. They check for security issues, and if there's not anything, and like I said, I've never seen an issue where the security company went out there and was like, oh, hey, we can't service this client. So they come out there, you fill out the contract with them and the application with them, no application, the contract, and the process is set up, and we can come and pick up your money. And essentially those deposits made via cash through the armored car service, the armored car service literally takes the money to the Federal Reserves, either in California's case, that'll either be Los Angeles or San Francisco, and they deposit the money right into your account. And usually those funds are available next day, which is actually one of the perks, I think, of Abaca, because a lot of cannabis banks in the space do not provide next day funding when those monies are deposited. It usually takes 2 to 3 business days. All right, just some really quick information about loans. We do partner with companies who provide short-term loans in the space, such as Fun Canna, and Lindica. Short-term loans, they range from the 1.5% range a month, and they could go higher, and that's based on your credit score. One of the big things that Pacific Valley Bank does, our partner here in California, we've done real estate backed loans in the space. We've done quite a few of those, I think about 10 to date, since the program's inception in 2018. So that's a much stricter kind of credit process. You have to obviously have real estate backed deal. You have to have strong personal guarantors, and we got about a 60 to 70% loan to value ratio. But they are doing those loans, and they are really focusing those loans into areas of the state where, say you have a cultivation facility, just using this as an example, and it's in Southern California, and that property could be used for something else other than cannabis. And that's just hedging our bets just in case something goes wrong with the loan.
Thanks, Tim. I think we'll jump over to from the banking to the more general compliance aspects here. But I think it's important to note before we really jump in here is that there is clearly a lot of overlap between general compliance and what is expected from you when you're opening a bank account. Just by background, yes, I'm the Chief Compliance Officer of GreenSpace Pro. By background, I have regulatory compliance experience in cannabis and outside of cannabis as well. In terms of cannabis, I have experience in numerous states from East Coast to West Coast, and I've operated in the space for around 5 years, maybe 5.5 at this point. So we'll jump into some general compliance expectations and what are some of your best practices really, and which will make your life easier when you're dealing with opening bank accounts, regulatory inspections, the IRS if you're ever audited. And what Tim was talking about, site inspections, they may be ministerial in nature, but really what they're doing is they're making sure that you're set up for successful operations and legal operations, right? That everything that you're doing, the product that is in your store is legal product, the product that waits leaving your store or your other type of facility, manufacturing, cultivation, distribution is in the legal way, and they could substantiate the financial that you're submitting to them, because there is a serious component of being able to substantiate your financials. So it's important to maintain good books and records. So not only should you put a best foot forward when somebody comes on site or just general operations, posting your licenses, just being organized, but your paperwork's got to be tight. And one thing that we see a lot is a lack of organization. You know, when you go on site to a lot of facilities, and I've seen this in numerous facilities, they're just full of papers. And whether it's in papers that you need to keep, or is just logs that you maintain manually, it's a lot of things that if you're asked to produce, you would potentially have a hard time producing in a quick enough manner, in an organized enough manner, and a complete enough manner. Because what happens if somebody forgets to do something? What happens if somebody couldn't assign something? So that's where, honestly, where a platform like GreenSpace is really helpful. You know, I've been involved in the project for, I believe, just over 2 years at this point, and we really developed this platform to help your lives be easier on a day-to-day basis. And then you have accountability from your employees and visibility to
Meeting
manage.
is recorded.
It's something that Nick is going to run through. Component of your day-to-day compliance is also document management. As you said, you know, paper is paper, but really you should have better organization than just paper. You need to be able to have transitions between employees and be able to understand how they title files, you know, some standardization. And realistically, the best way that I've seen through experience is through centralization. Next slide, please. Thanks, Sarah. And the way you set yourself up from continuity, even as your management changes, even as your employees change, is it's really a tone from the top, right? You establish a culture of compliance. And when you have a culture of compliance, it transitions into, you know, standardized operations, consistent operations, and everybody really speaking the same tone. You know, one of the biggest things we see, and it goes back to validation of your financials and validation of sales, especially this is specific to retail. Folks oftentimes treat cannabis retail like they would a traditional retail environment, which is not true. You know, if you double scan a product, that's going to mess up your regulatory systems. That's going to mess up various aspects of your internal POS and your inventory. And that at scale, and if it continues over several months, you could have issues from an IRS audit perspective or from a bank validation perspective when the bank tries to validate your financials. So you really want to establish the culture of compliance through good operations and good training and good management. And when you set that tone, your employees will follow, they will respect, and they understand. So it's not just doing something, it's also understand why they're doing it. And it's going to be important for you to communicate to why employees are doing something. So when they're asked to change or when they're asked to prove out their function, they'll understand why you're asking. You're not going to get as much pushback from your employees. And that culture will permeate throughout your entire organization. And what that's going to get you ready for, as I mentioned earlier, and Tim alluded to, is just auditing. Whether it's regulatory, internal operation, financial, if you're planning on doing a roll-up, if you're planning on merging with another entity, if you're planning on, and you're part of a large organization and going public potentially at some point in the future, you have to be ready for a financial audit. And for that, you have to be organized, you have to be centralized, and all your operations have to be in an easily accessible manner. And by that, I mean controls, being able to identify and how you supervise your employees, how you supervise your transactions, all the sign-offs, all the management reviews. It is really important to keep those things centralized. And that's where GreenSpace Pro really comes in to help just the whole operation of the business and provide transparency to anybody in the organization. Next slide, please. And with that, I'm going to hand this off to Nick, who's going to run you through the platform. And then we're going to have some time left at the end for a Q&A, because I did see that there's some questions that came in.
Thank you for that awesome introduction, Ed. Can you guys all see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So considering we're doing a financial seminar right now, I wanted to kind of start off with our project section within GreenSpace and kind of show how you can organize all your documents in order to be prepared to talk to Tim and be ready to go when it comes to your compliance efforts on trying to get your bank account. It's very easy within GreenSpace to collaborate, and Ed brought up this great point. It's a centralized location where everybody on your team can see everything, and where you can even bring in outside sources like Tim into GreenSpace so he can monitor, or his customer success reps, and show where you need to be compliant. So this is a onboarding checklist that was provided by Abaca that we're going to be templatizing within GreenSpace, and everybody that's a GreenSpace user will have access to. And it gives you all the requirements that you need in order to pass the checklist in order to get your bank accounts with Abaca. Each task is separated down into different parts, whether your entity documents to the owners, each one can go in. You have a view mode which is really important because you have your attachments here, your proposals, everything's organized in one place. You can add comments here. You could CC Tim, add him into your workspace, and he can answer questions right here instead of getting into a phone call, while also having an audit log to make sure that everyone's seen what needs to be seen. So anyone on your team that you need to go in and handle just a specific task, you can assign them in GreenSpace, and they'll get a notification when that task is assigned, when it's coming close to due, whether it be 3 days, 7 days, 30 days. This is all customizable. And this is, once you have a template, it can also be customized from that as well. And there's different views. Say you want to have a Gantt chart timeline view, it'll kind of give you a more overview of where you need, what you need to do over the next month. You can click right into which tasks you want, and you can edit directly from there. And security is very important when it comes to cannabis as well. Each one of these tasks can be privatized, made public. So say you have an outside source that only wants to see, that only needs to see one task, that you don't want to see their state license, that can be seen. You can just share that one task. So they're in your GreenSpace and they're only able to see the one thing that they need to see. GreenSpace as a whole, we manage through 4 different main screens. We have our home screen, which will bring you to where you're going to see everything that's coming up due, anything that you've been tasked to. It'll come on your home screen daily. You'll get notifications through your email or through Google. Your projects, where I just was, where we have templates, including this new template that we're going to be putting together for the financial side, but especially when it comes to your New York site plan, your cultivation report, specific for states, that we have all of that. That comes included with GreenSpace. And then we come to your location tab. And this is where you manage all your separate locations. And each project is linked to a location. This location that we're using today is La Brea, and this is where we're trying to get the information to get over to Abaca. And you can see you can link your projects right to these, right to your locations, and it takes you right to where you need to go. We're a really location-based software. It's really helpful because it helps you manage your licenses, gives you compliance, so you make sure you keep your licenses, whether it be your security contacts, anything like that, we have it. As well as our file library, where if you see here, you'll see all your files that were loaded up in order to get this compliance done. So it's all in one place for your application. What I really like to do is dive deeper, but we only have 30 minutes on this webinar. So if you reach out directly, we'll set up a direct demo, and I'll run through all the features of GreenSpace for you directly on a one-on-one.
Thank you, Nick. So we do have a couple of questions. I do see that Tim answered them directly, but I'd just like to kind of read them out loud, just so the entire attendees can hear. So the first one was, what if it's a startup and you don't have any vendors yet? And I'm Tim, I believe that's for you. Oh, you're muted.
Do that all the time. Yes, so we definitely good point on the startup companies. We do bank those companies. So obviously you wouldn't have like a full list of vendors, so that's totally okay. We come in with a standard $50 a month account for startup companies, and then once you're licensed, obviously the fees change, and then we'll ask for some of those vendors when you're licensed. So
great. And then the other question is this product available in New York? And I'd like both Tim and Nick to go ahead and answer that. Go ahead, Tim.
Absolutely. We service New York. Like I said, we're nationwide, so we could definitely provide a bank account for you there, and that would go through a different financial partner than Pacific Valley Bank, but we could definitely do that for you.
And Nick, if you could cover that on behalf of GreenSpace Pro.
On GreenSpace, yeah, we work with Abaca and other financial partners in order to that's why we're building the template that's going to be standardized for every single person that uses GreenSpace and available to you. So you'll be able to use that to bank in New York and get your files together so you're organized.
Great, thank you. And then one last thing, let's see here. For Tim, where can Abaca help with bank accounts? You know, like you know, beyond New Jersey, New York, California. And also how long does it generally take to open a bank account?
Great question. I mean, once again, we're nationwide, so we can kind of bank you wherever you're at in the 50 states. It usually takes about 2 to 3 weeks to for this whole process, which I laid out very briefly. So it's about a 2 to 3 week process. If we get documentation faster, it's clean as possible, and this is definitely where GreenSpace can help if we get the right
I think maybe Tim's internet connection is a little breaking up.
Yeah, just a little bit.
I think I'll fill in the blanks for Tim a little bit there.
So I've seen accounts if it's moving
There we
fast.
go.
So yeah. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, it's getting a little stronger. Yeah.
Okay. 2 to 3 weeks. Simple bank account. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And we did have another question come in. Gary is located in New York, and he's asking how you deal with cash transactions being deposited in New York.
Same process we use in California. We work with an armored car vendor, and I'm not sure if it's OS. So I'd have to double check in New York. I could definitely get information.
Okay, Tim's getting frozen again. We will go ahead and get the answer to that question from Tim, and we'll email that all out to all the registrants. But it looks like that is all of our questions. If you have any more, please take a picture of the screen now. You can email any of our guys here, Tim and or Nick, and ask us anything. Thank you so much for attending our webinar, and we really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you to our panelists.
Of course. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.